Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Crafty Crow Show. Today's video, we're going to do something a little special that many people don't get to see. For years, since the beginning of Harlan, one of the biggest problems we've faced is flooding. Historically, the floods were bad. The last really bad one here was in 1977. Since then, there has been some flooding, but nothing like the 77 flood. But after that flood, there was a lot of attention brought to the area, and it was decided finally to give Harlan some relief. So today's video, we're going to show the different stages of the flood control project, the dates they were made, and we're going to get a little special thing. We're going with the emergency management director and the Harlan City Fire Department because it's flood maintenance time, floodgate maintenance time. If you're interested, stick with us, come with us. Let's go see how this whole flood wall thing works and how everything goes together. So starting out, I've got us here behind Harlan Funeral Home, right on the banks of what would have been the river bank. You can see behind me the bridge here. Let me step out of your way a little more. You got the bridge here, and this was the original channel where the Clover Fork River come out of Everett's. Clover Fork River drains from Holmes's Mill all the way at the Virginia line, all the way down through Everett's out to Harlan. This was the original river channel. Now all it is a drainage ditch now because they rerouted the river through an entire mountain to reroute it around Harlan. The river would have come down through here, went under this bridge, and then come around to here. But this is the pump station. If you go down the bypass, it's real easy to see. But there are three large, very large water pumps in there, and someday we might be able to get in to see that. But they pump the water from the old riverbed that I showed you over there, goes through these pumps and out these pipes. And you can see, I mean, just the size of these pipes, you can imagine how big those pumps are inside. But this will drain all the water, because all the water in town drains down to this old riverbed and drains right in here, and they can pump it straight out underneath the flood wall to the other side and get it back out of town. Now before we go any farther, and before I forget, because that's how I am, I want to give a humongous thanks to the men and women that has done this today, to the Harlan City Fire Department, and to Harlan County Emergency Management, and to the Harlan County Road Department. Those three organizations are the ones that have kept this flood wall maintained since it was built and handed over by the Corps of Engineers in the state. And you know, like I said, this is a yearly thing. They do an awesome job, especially times of flooding and stuff. These things get shut pretty quick and keeps everybody safe and secure. So I wanted to give them a big thanks before we went any further, to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I tried to stay out of your way. I know a lot of you didn't expect to have a camera stuck in your face today, but I do appreciate it very much, and just looking forward to getting this out to all of you all, so you'll know. So big thanks to those organizations. Now let's get on with the rest of the video. On October 9th of 1989, Congressman Hal Rogers, which is still our congressman, kicked off a groundbreaking historic ceremony on North Main Street in Harlan by initiating a plunger signaling the ignition of several charges on the hillside to begin excavation to divert the flow of the Clover Fork River around Harlan proper. The Army Corp of Engineers is who done all this work. So they broke this up into three separate sections, but it started there in October of 1989. The first phase of the project, they constructed 4 2,000-foot tunnels through Ivy Hill. It says about 600 people watched and cheered when the Corps diverted the water through the tunnels September 21st, 1992. Phase 2 started with the construction of a 4,000-foot flood wall adjacent to Highway 421, and that's what you see here behind me. 3 highway floodgates, this being the biggest, 1 railroad floodgate, which we should show here in a little while, and an 875-foot levee segment, which is on North Main Street. They completed this work in September of 1996. And then phase 3 was cutting through an entire mountain at Lowell to reroute the river around Lowell The entire project was completed in 1999, and they had a dedication ceremony in 1999. And show you that picture. It's got Hal Rogers officiating the ceremonies here, and you can see in this picture, you know, everybody was here. You can see the cut behind them that they made through there at Lowell. But that was the 3 phases of flood wall construction. Okay guys, you have to bear with me on this one because this is one of the hardest spots to shoot of this. We're on, behind me there, Highway 38 that goes to Everts. And I'll try to get views of this levee and flood wall, but it's kind of hard right here. It's kind of tight, and this is a pretty busy road. So look over the noise. We'll see what we can get shot. So looking over the bridge, there is the tunnel that's closest to Everts. And you can see it's got a good flat bottom, a lot of rock debris and stuff built up, but things flow there pretty good. And then there's the other 4 tunnels. They've got embutments made here. And you can see why it's a little hard to film because it's real tight against the mountain here, but they cut out all this to go under Ivy Hill. Now let's see if I can get you across the road without getting hit and see the levee system. The tunnel's right there. You can kind of see the arch of one of them. And this is the Clover Fork River. Now there's the levee. That's Fairview back there in the background, part of Harlan. The levee goes all the way across, and then you can see right out there that gray, that's another floodgate, and that's for the train tracks, CSX train tracks that go up toward Everts. So these are the massive flood tunnels they diverted the Clover Fork River through from Everts around Harlan. We've got North Main Street right here. The way that car is heading back into town. And then you've got these 4 tunnels. I think looking up, because it's hard to tell from this distance, but 32 foot high, maybe. They look a lot bigger than that to me. You can probably see a brown line here to know how full these things get during flood events or high water events. So they blasted out this entire mountain and built this bridge just for these flood tunnels. Up that way is Martin's Fork of the Cumberland River, and there goes Clover Fork. So those two join right here at these tunnels. And down this way, just a little ways, behind Dairy Queen, is where the Poor Fork that drains the Cumberland, the basin up toward Cumberland and all the way up to Pine Mountain at Whitesburg, and drains that whole basin and joins in and actually forms the Cumberland River. But the completion of these tunnels was the completion of phase 1 for the Army Corps of Engineers. Reroute the river first and then get the walls built. So one of the most interesting parts to me is the floodgates here on the bypass. This is a 4-lane roadway, and there's 2 massive gates that we have to shut. Now, behind me is Martin's Fork. Martin's Fork comes and drains all the area from Smith, Kaywood, everything all the way downstream. And this would be the first part of the flood wall that it would hit. So this is the upstream side of the flood wall. And one of the first things they do is take the fire truck with the hose and they spray out all the seals, all the mud and everything that has accumulated over the past year. That's one of the most important things to get out first. There's just one of the gates. Like I said, this gate will span 2 lanes of this road. They built this wall all the way down. It spans down the entire bypass up to the cut you can see off up in there in the distance. There wasn't really much levee work that had to be done. We'll get down there and show you the end that there is a levee, but most of it was a big concrete structure. About got up here too late. So I don't know if you can tell from this angle or not. This thing is kind of in a V shape, and the point of the V is pointed toward the upstream side, because all of the force of the water would be hitting on this gate coming out of Martin's Fork, and that's kind of to deflect that force a little bit and deflect it on around the flood wall. So they've got the gates pulled close. I think you seen there a second ago, there's still a little bit of gap in the middle, and I believe there's some big seals that go into that gap. We'll see if that's what that is, but right now it's got two big, like, I don't know what you call them, ratchet braces or whatever, that kind of keep the gates pulled together and keeps them from spreading apart. You know, the force of the water would hit it and keep it shut, but this is an extra added measure. And there's the view of the gates closed. Now to open them back up, just give them a little nudge. Like I said, you can see, you know, all these guys from the highway department, they can push that gate open with enough manpower. So if all else fails, you know, but to be as big as they are though, they're pretty well balanced. I'm sure those guys right now might not agree with me, but yeah, they can get them open by manpower. And there's the other side of the flood wall. So this is the most intrusive for the community thing to test, because like I said, it shuts down this 4-lane road, and this is the main road going through Harlan from one end to the other. This is actually US 421 is the road number on this. Okay, the next gate to tackle is going over to the football field. This is the area they considered Georgetown. It was a part of Harlan City. Now it's where all the sports complexes are for the Harlan Independent School System. But the interesting thing, you can see this line right here. That was the original bank line next to the river. All this rise, and it goes on from about right behind that tree where you can see all the way over. Every bit of that built up from this original line right here is fill. And all that fill came from this flood construction project. It was all built up when they cut through the tunnels, and I think even some of the cut through Lowell and stuff, this is where they put all the fill from those projects. So all this land you see here used to be under a mountain, just like everything else in Harlan, I guess. So that's why this gate's here. It goes over to the football field and the sports complexes. But this gate's a little bit different than the other one. I actually forgot this, but that's Main Street there, or the bypass there in the background. And here's this gate, but this gate is different because, as you can see across the bottom, it's got rollers. So this is just a gate that slides over and locks in. There's a winch system and stuff built in. I don't know if you can see that line, but they've got it winching, and we'll watch this thing get closed. You can see here they've just got a portable winch that clicks in, and they got a battery. And that's what'll pull this gate back open. That's what pulled it closed. Let's see if we can get up here a little closer. So next up, we're on the north end of town. This behind us is North Main Street, and that's the North Main Street flood gate. This gate is at the end of the levee that I'll show you here in a second, an actual dirt levee. And this is usually the first gate that gets shut when the water's getting up, because this is actually the lowest gate in the system. So they'll shut this one first and kind of work their way back upstream to the bypass gates. So let's get up here before they get this one closed on me and see what this one looks like. Again, with this one, a much smaller gate, 2-lane road, so this one ought to be a lot easier to close with the winch. But just pretty much like the one out on the bypass, you know, just shut it, lock it down, and that's it. You can kind of see along each side of the gate those black lines. That's actually rubber seals. That's what seals it to the concrete pillars and keeps the water out. And you know, none of these gates are totally watertight. There will be some leakage, which goes for the reason for the pump house back there. As you can tell, that gate was a little more defiant than the other one was. The rubber seal across the bottom, I think, was just kind of dragging the road, and that's what most of the sound was. But it shut a little easier because it's a little smaller. Now, on the completion of this part, this was the end of phase 2 for the Corps of Engineers. So the next stop we'll make is phase 3, which is the flood wall around Lowell. A little quick side note, coming up here, you'll see a coal monument. I have been researching for months on that thing to get information, and I think I've finally got it squared away. So be on the lookout for a video on that monument, what it's doing there, why it's there, and everything about it, or at least everything that I can find. That's been a process. And while we're driving, if y'all are liking this video, like this Harlan County History series, you know, please comment down in the video below, like the video, hit the like button, and if you've not yet, subscribe. Because I'm making a bunch of these, got a bunch more in the pipeline, and we're growing every day, and you can help us grow by subscribing, hitting the like button, especially commenting. That's all good things to help the channel grow if you want to help me. Coming up is the interlocking tower there on the right. If you've not seen that video, check out this link up here at the top right. And you can click on that and see my information on that video. That's the first one of the Harlan County History series that I've done. So coming up, you've got the entrance to the CSX train yard here at Lowell. And we'll try to get the shots of those massive gates, but you can see both of them. And there is 3 tracks, but there's enough room probably for a 4th track there. We won't be closing those today, but we're going to be closing the ones right down next to it. So the main thing with this gate is this big swinging gate, balanced well. I think it's probably about the same size as the one on there on North Main Street. This actually gives you the backside of what one of these gates look like, because they're always up against the concrete barriers when you drive through. Now this will be the leading gate. Besides the gates there at the train yard, this will be the leading gate where most of the water would hit. At this point, like I said earlier, this is now the Cumberland River, not just a Martin's Fork, Clover Fork, or Poor Fork. All 3 of them to come together, and now it's the Cumberland River off to our left here. So this thing would be taking a brunt of the force of the water. Now Lowell's a little unique. It doesn't have a pump station like Harlan does to get water out of the wall. I'll show you how it works once we get into Lowell here and start looking at all this part of the phase, but a little bit different on how they get water out. So let's get into Lowell and explore what phase 3 meant for the Corps of Engineers. Next up, way off in the distance there, is where we just were. Then you have the whole concrete wall, which turns into an earthen levee. Now there's the Cumberland River that's aimed back toward Harlan. This is Highway 840. It comes across this bridge you've got this massive cut into the mountain. We talked about how the town of Lowell didn't have a pump station like Harlan does. So you can see the steps going down right to the bottom of those steps, and where that dam is, there's an intake right there. And here's a backside view of the levee, and there is where the intake is. Fresh water comes through there from the river at all times. There's a gate there where that concrete box is that can open and close. Now this area here, this depression, was where the Cumberland River actually ran down by Lowell. So, you know, they left some of these areas because they were natural drainages. All the drainage from the train yard and across the road drains out into this. That drains all the way around. It goes down and curves around in behind Lowell and has a gate on the other end. And they keep that one open so there's constant water flowing. But when the river gets up, they'll close this gate and leave the other one at the other end open on the other side of this cut. And the water rushing by actually pulls water out of this drainage ditch, because this is essentially a drainage ditch now. So that's how they keep water out from inside the flood wall here at Lowell. So here's the view of this whole diversion channel for the Cumberland River around the town of Lowell. That's the bridge going to an area they call Park Hill, and you can see the convoy of guys coming out. They have one more gate to shut because back there where they're all coming from is the end of the levee back there on the other side of Rio Vista, and where they have a gate going across the train tracks and across the road. So I figured y'all had enough of seeing all the gates being closed, so we skipped that one. But back through there is the end of the system. So here we are with the cut through the mountain at Lowell. The bridge back here is Highway 840. And this entire mountain was took off. So, huge project. This was the end of phase 3, and finally diverted the river and put flood walls around to keep this area from flooding, hopefully anymore. So far, since its completion, there's not been any major flooding in Lowell or in Harlan. So, you know, we're very thankful for that. But huge undertaking by the Corps of Engineers. Those guys did a great job on doing everything. You know, it took about a 10-year span to get all this done, but it got done. So, hope y'all enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed coming along to see all this and learn a little bit about the history of the flood control project in Harlan. Thanks for stopping by. I hope y'all will come again for the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this one. As I said before, leave a comment in the bottom if you liked it, and let us know what you thought about it. I know many of us remember this. I remember this whole project going on because this was in my lifetime. So finally a history video that I know something about. But until next time, thank you all for stopping by. Love one another as the good Lord tells you, and we'll see you on the next video.